just remember I can only sing one part at a time, so if you leave, we're in trouble. Hi, thank you very much. I spoke at some length about the Nielsen before the concert, so just had a few kind of final comments to make about this spectacular piece. In addition to all I mentioned about its structure, Nielsen was, most of the famous composers, the ones you named, you know, were master instrumentalists or orchestrators, meaning they knew that this melody can only be played by the clarinet. This melody has to be played by the first violin section or by the cello or by a trombone or one of the instruments. And this, of course, when the orchestra expanded to pretty much its present-day full size that you see here with at least this many different types of instruments, not necessarily amounts, but different types, was by really after Beethoven's time, Berlioz, the 1830s and 40s, who was himself a master orchestrator. Nielsen, like any individual, be it an author, any artist who creates something, there are certain signature aspects to their music that you can tell even if you don't recognize the piece. And one of them is he likes unique, for some people, listeners, awkward, odd combinations of instruments. And so towards the end of this first large part, you're going to hear a wonderful cadenza by the solo clarinet. Just exquisite, beautiful, tenuous, melismatic, almost like a chant in church. It's gorgeous. And it's joined by the snare drum, which is not exactly an instrument you would expect that would be mellow and fluid, more like something that you want to do when you want to disturb somebody and hit them in the face, or get them really excited, especially if you're a fan of, let's say, Ginger Baker. Okay, all right, never mind. He was, I won't tell you. In any case, but you actually hear snare drum throughout sections, and it's an instrument which tends to very easily, even when played quietly and delicately like our great player, intrude, maybe, not really, but add something very distinctive. So, another thing I wanted to mention about this piece, in addition to the instrumentation and how it's used, is the timing. Sometimes we forget to look at the dates when a piece is composed. This is 1920 to 22. The Great War kills many, many millions of people, and at the end of it, many, many more millions are killed by flu. And researching this piece and studying, because I'm an amateur musicologist from my training, that it was surprising that nobody addressed this issue. And there is a certain amount of angst in this piece. It isn't just dissonance, you know, two notes that don't quite jive, fit together, or complex rhythms, as you will hear in this, and especially like in Stravinsky's music of the same period. But this is a very dramatic period of time. And undoubtedly Nielsen, you know, being a European composer, had to have noticed this, you know, that all this terrible stuff had happened, you know. So it's very distinctive. Be aware of this. I don't think it throws the piece at you. It doesn't turn it into this angry piece or melancholy per se, but you're going to notice that there's a definite tinge to when things get really intense and when they get calm and then they turn kind of melancholy. And it must have been on his mind. Then the last thing I wanted to mention is in the opening concerts, I talked quite a bit, not so much the last concert, about I'm not a theme concert person who likes to set up big themes, you know, the anniversary of this and that. But it struck me we're living in a very difficult time, certainly in the summer and last spring when I was planning this season. And so I decided to do something perhaps a little bit odd to most of you. I decided to focus on the key of E flat. E flat okay, all right, talking about a secret handshake. Centuries ago, keys represented moods. And composers were aware of this. And so they wrote pieces in this key to represent a mood, even if the audience, most of the people didn't have perfect pitch and couldn't tell. And they used this. And so E flat, it just so happens, was the assigned key of love and contentment. And it struck me that this is a difficult time, and what better. And I also happen to like E flat. It's very tricky to play and tune on any string instrument or a wind, and it's kind of awkward on the piano as well. And I struggle in all those instruments, so it was an obvious choice for me. So Nielsen, who I had mentioned, goes all over the place harmonically, not like constant over and over, but it appears to stabilize in a key and then move. Goes through just about every significant key except for E flat, and at the end, it's like somebody, the clouds part, and you see the sun, and everything's okay. It ends, and it climaxes on a titanic E flat major, relaxed and incredibly solid chord. And so it's very apt. And as John mentioned earlier in his notes, we're ending the season with Beethoven's Eroica Symphony No. 3, which is in, thank you very much, the key of E flat. So now you know. Enjoy Nielsen Symphony No. 5.